The rain had a way of making Cleveland feel smaller, like the city folded in on itself when the clouds opened. Streets that buzzed with noise during the day now echoed with dripping gutters and the distant hum of traffic on I-90. Officer Daniel Harper drove slowly, windshield wipers squeaking in a tired rhythm as his patrol car rolled past shuttered warehouses and boarded storefronts. It was supposed to be a quiet shift. No calls, no dispatch chatter, just a routine patrol through a district everyone else avoided after dark. Harper had learned to trust that silence. In his 10 years on the force, quiet usually meant two things. Either nothing was happening or something terrible already had. He eased off the gas as his headlights swept across the cracked pavement near the old textile mill, a place abandoned so long that even graffiti artists had stopped caring. The building loomed like a dead giant, its broken windows staring back at him. That's when something moved. A blur, small, fast. Harper's foot hit the brake instinctively. The blur darted between two parked cars, slipped, then skidded to a stop directly in the path of his headlights. For a split second, Harper thought it was injured wildlife, maybe a raccoon or a stray cat. Then the shape lifted its head. Pointed ears, dark muzzle, a thin, trembling body soaked through with rain. "A dog," Harper muttered. He shifted the patrol car into park but didn't open the door right away. Strays were unpredictable, especially at night. He watched carefully through the windshield as the animal stood there, water dripping from its fur. It wasn't an adult. It was a puppy. A German Shepherd puppy, no more than 3 months old by Harper's estimate. Its paws looked too big for its body, and its ribs showed faintly beneath its wet coat. One ear stood straight while the other folded awkwardly to the side. The puppy didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't run. It just stood there, staring straight at him. Harper frowned. "Where's your owner, huh?" He opened his door slowly. The cold air hit his face, sharp and metallic with the smell of rain and rust. His boots splashed as he stepped onto the pavement. Most strays bolted the moment a car door opened. This one didn't move. Instead, it sat down, right in front of him. Harper froze. The puppy lifted one muddy paw and placed it gently against his boot, as if making a request. Its dark eyes locked onto his face, not glassy, not panicked, but alert and strangely intense. Not fear. Urgency. Harper felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Hey, easy there, buddy," he said quietly, crouching just enough to lower himself without appearing threatening. The puppy let out a soft whine, low, pleading, and then stood, taking a few steps away before stopping. It turned its head and looked back at him. Once, twice, waiting. Harper straightened slowly. Every instinct told him this wasn't normal. Dogs begged for food. Dogs followed warmth. But this wasn't that. This felt deliberate. "You want me to follow you?" Harper asked, half under his breath. The puppy barked once, not loud, not aggressive, then trotted a few feet farther away before stopping again. Waiting. Harper glanced around. The street was empty. No houses, no pedestrians, just rain, darkness, and the skeletal outline of the mill. He told himself he'd just escort the dog somewhere safe. Animal control could deal with it. That was the rational choice. Still, his hand drifted unconsciously toward his radio. "Dispatch," he said quietly, eyes never leaving the puppy. "I've got a stray juvenile German Shepherd near the old textile mill. I'm going to check it out." "Copy that," crackled the reply. "Advise if you need assistance." The puppy started moving again, faster now, paws splashing through shallow puddles. Harper followed, boots echoing against concrete as they passed the edge of the mill and slipped into a narrow side street choked with trash and broken pallets. The further they went, the colder the air felt. Harper noticed something then, something that made his stomach tighten. Dark spots on the ground, At first he told himself it was oil, or rust mixed with rainwater. But the spots were uneven, staggered. A trail. He knelt and touched one with a gloved finger. Even diluted by rain, the color was unmistakable. Blood. Harper's posture stiffened instantly. His senses sharpened, the way they always did when routine tipped into danger. He scanned the alley, eyes flicking to rooftops, corners, shadows. "Hey," he called softly to the puppy, "where are you taking me?" The puppy stopped abruptly and whined again, higher this time, more urgent. It pawed at the ground, then looked back at him, tail low but wagging just once, encouraging him. The blood trail grew heavier as they moved deeper into the alley, leading toward a rusted chain-link fence, bent outward like something had crashed through it in a hurry. Harper felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't about a lost dog. This was about someone hurt. Badly. He raised his radio. "Dispatch, I'm requesting medical standby. Possible injured person near the mill." Before dispatch could respond, the puppy squeezed through the gap in the fence. "Wait," Harper started, then followed. On the other side, the world seemed to close in. The alley narrowed. The smell hit him first, metallic blood mixed with damp garbage. Then he saw the shape slumped against a dumpster. A man. Motionless. Harper rushed forward, heart pounding, and knelt beside him. And then he saw the jacket. Dark blue, torn, soaked red at the side. A police jacket. Harper's breath caught in his throat. The puppy rushed ahead of him and curled tightly against the man's chest, pressing its small body against him as if trying to keep him warm. The man groaned faintly. "Alive." Harper's hands shook as he reached for his radio again. Because lying bleeding in the shadows of an abandoned mill was one of their own. And the puppy hadn't begged for help by accident. It had come looking for him. The rain had become relentless, hammering the alley like a drum roll from some vengeful sky. Officer Daniel Harper's heart pounded against his ribcage as he crouched beside the man, trying not to slip in the slick muck. The small German shepherd puppy, Kaiser, as Harper would later learn, pressed itself against the officer's chest, shivering but alert, scanning the shadows as if guarding a treasure. Harper leaned closer, trying to read the man's face through the rain-slick hair plastered to his forehead. His breath came in shallow gasps, but his eyes flickered open, just enough for Harper to see the fear, the pain, and, somewhere deep beneath it all, a spark of recognition. "Marcus," Harper whispered, as though saying the name aloud could somehow tether the officer to life. The man blinked slowly. "Daniel," he rasped, his voice hoarse, barely audible over the storm. Harper's stomach knotted. This was Marcus Reed, missing for nearly 24 hours. The department had issued a quiet alert, but the brass hadn't wanted to escalate it publicly. A police officer disappearing into the night without a trace was bad publicity, and even worse, a haunting possibility no one wanted to confront. What if he'd been killed? But here he was, alive though barely. "I've got you," Harper said, reaching for Marcus's arm to support him. "You're going to be okay, just stay with me." The man tried to smile, but a violent cough interrupted him, echoing harshly against the brick walls. Blood flecked his lips. Harper's stomach dropped. Whoever had done this had left Marcus for dead, and the man's injuries were severe. Deep lacerations cut across his side, soaked through his uniform jacket. Bruising suggested a struggle, an intense one. Harper's eyes flicked to Kaiser. The puppy whined, pawing at Marcus's chest, nose sniffing the wound instinctively. It was as if the dog had a sixth sense about danger, pain, and the fragility of life. Harper's chest tightened. There was no time to admire the puppy's instinct. He needed to move Marcus, call for backup, and secure the scene. He fumbled for his radio. "Dispatch," he said, keeping his voice low but urgent. "Officer down, code 3, old textile mill alleyway near 9th Street. Send EMS and backup. I repeat, officer down." Static buzz, then a crackled voice replied. Copy, Officer Harper. Units are en route. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That was a lifetime when someone's life hung by a thread. Harper shifted his focus back to Marcus. Can you stand? He asked gently. The officer groaned, trying to sit upright, but pain and weakness pinned him against the dumpster. Harper realized he would have to carry him. There was no time for hesitation. The puppy, sensing Harper's intention, darted to the edge of the alley, ears erect, eyes scanning for movement. Then it barked sharply, a high-pitched, insistent bark that echoed off the walls. Harper froze. From the shadows beyond the fence, a figure moved, then another. The silhouettes were barely visible, hooded, hands tucked into pockets, faces hidden by darkness. Harper's pulse surged. He couldn't see weapons, but the air crackled with menace. The puppy growled low, a sound far too deep for its size. Harper's heart skipped a beat. Stay close, he whispered to the dog. Whatever comes, we handle it together. The shadows advanced, and Harper took instinctive action. He positioned himself between the attackers and Marcus, who was barely conscious, and readied his sidearm. Police! Step back, he barked. Hopping, his voice carried authority, even in the rain-soaked alley. The first figure laughed, a cruel, hollow sound that made Harper's blood run cold. It's just a kid, the man sneered, motioning toward Kaiser. Move, mutt. Kaiser's hackles rose, his small body tense yet unyielding. Harper marveled at the dog's bravery. Then, in a blur, the puppy lunged. The attackers were caught off guard. Kaiser sank his teeth into the ankle of the nearest man, eliciting a scream that cut through the rain and darkness. The second man stumbled backward, tripping over a loose brick, his hands flailing. Harper acted instantly, yelling commands, weapon raised. Get down! Police! The attackers froze for a fraction too long, enough for Harper to get a clear shot at the one moving toward Marcus. The rain hissed as bullets splashed harmlessly against wet concrete nearby, but the pause was enough for the chaos to favor them. Backup arrived moments later. Sirens pierced the storm, red and blue lights flashing across wet brick and puddles. The attackers scrambled, but it was too late. Within minutes, both were restrained, cuffed, and loaded into separate patrol vehicles. Weapons were recovered, evidence secured. Harper exhaled slowly, bending down to Marcus again. The officer was barely conscious, yet he managed a weak grin. Did he find someone? He whispered, voice trembling. Harper looked down at Kaiser, who now sat proudly by Marcus's side, tail wagging slightly despite the tension. Yes, Harper said, voice thick with emotion. He found you. Marcus's hand trembled as he reached for the puppy, dragging it closer. Good boy, Kaiser, he whispered, his eyes closing again as pain overtook him. Harper watched, realizing something profound. This wasn't just a random act of loyalty. This puppy had saved his partner's life instinctively, without training, or so it seemed. Harper scanned the alley once more, empty, silent, rain still pouring. He glanced down at the blood-soaked officer and the brave little dog and realized that tonight had changed everything. This was no longer a routine patrol. It was a rescue, a story that would ripple through the precinct. And the puppy, so small, so seemingly helpless, had led them to it all. Then Marcus's eyes opened again, a shadow of fear flickering. They're still out there, he rasped. Harper's stomach sank. The men who did this, they thought I was dead. Before Harper could respond, Marcus slumped unconscious again, leaving the officer, the dog, and the storm to confront the lingering threat in the shadows. Kaiser growled once more, low and deliberate. The puppy's gaze locked on the darkness beyond the fence, unwavering, alert, fearless. Harper knew in that instant, this was only the beginning. Somehow this little dog had already proven he was more than a pet. He was a protector. And whatever lay ahead, Harper was going to witness it, because Kaiser wasn't done yet. The rain continued its relentless rhythm, drumming against the alley walls, turning puddles into murky mirrors of the night sky. Officer Daniel Harper remained on his knees beside Marcus Reed, the young German Shepherd puppy, Kaiser, pressed against the injured officer's chest, his small body trembling but his eyes sharp and alert. Each soft whine, each paw against Marcus's side, seemed like a silent plea for survival. Harper's hands hovered over Marcus's uniform, feeling the heat of his body against the cold, soaked fabric. He had seen plenty of injuries over his years on the force, but the way Marcus's ribs felt under his fingers, the shallow, irregular breathing, the tension in his neck, it told Harper that every second mattered. "Marcus, can you hear me?" Harper asked gently, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. Marcus's eyelids fluttered, his lips trembling. Daniel, did he find someone?" Harper followed Marcus's gaze downward. Kaiser had his small paws firmly planted on Marcus's chest, ears erect, teeth barely visible as he growled softly at the shadows beyond the alley. Harper realized with a mix of awe and disbelief that the puppy wasn't just protective. He was scanning for danger, a sentinel in fur. "Yes," Harper said softly, a lump forming in his throat. "He found you." Marcus tried to smile, a weak curve of his lips before coughing violently. Blood flecked the corner of his mouth and Harper's stomach sank. He needed to act fast. "Hold on, Marcus. You're going to be fine," Harper said, pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Harper. Officer down, severe trauma, alleyway by the abandoned textile mill. Send EMS and backup immediately. Repeat, officer down. We have a possible threat still in the area." Static crackled in response, followed by a calm but urgent acknowledgement. "Copy, Harper. Units en route. ETA 2 minutes." Harper exhaled, trying to keep his own panic at bay. He looked down at the small figure of Kaiser, whose eyes never left the shadows. The rain made everything slippery, the ground a chaotic mix of puddles and scattered debris, but the puppy remained steady, refusing to leave Marcus's side. Harper glanced up, scanning the alley. Movement. Subtle at first, almost invisible against the darkness, but his trained eyes caught it, shifting shadows, the faint glint of metal in the dim light of his patrol car. He stiffened. "They're here," he whispered, barely moving his lips. "Stay with me, buddy." Kaiser's growl deepened, low and warning, almost human in its urgency. The first figure emerged from the alley's edge, hood drawn, hands tucked into pockets. Then another. The men were silent, but Harper could feel the menace radiating from them. He recognized the posture, the slow, deliberate movements of people accustomed to intimidation. Harper rose slowly, positioning himself between Marcus and the intruders, gun drawn. "Police, step back," he barked, trying to project authority through the storm. A cruel laugh echoed in response. "It's just a puppy," one of the men sneered, stepping forward as if to intimidate. "Move, mutt." Kaiser's reaction was instantaneous. He lunged with precision that belied his age and size, teeth sinking into the man's ankle. The attacker screamed, stumbling back and falling into a pile of broken crates. The second man hesitated, caught off guard by the puppy's ferocity, and Harper knew this was their chance. "Get down, police," Harper shouted, advancing as the men faltered. The rain-slicked ground made every step treacherous, but Harper's years of training kicked in. He could see every opening, every opportunity. One more step and the attackers would be in custody. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, red and blue lights slicing through the darkness. Harper exhaled sharply. Backup had arrived. Kaiser never left Marcus's side, maintaining his protective stance even as officers moved to secure the suspects. Harper's hands were slick with rain and blood, but his mind was clear. This puppy, this small, seemingly fragile German shepherd, had led him to a wounded officer, held off potential threats, and remained vigilant despite the chaos surrounding them. Marcus groaned, trying to sit up as paramedics arrived, his eyes locking onto Harper and then Kaiser. He did it," Marcus whispered, voice trembling. "Kaiser, he found me." Harper nodded, kneeling beside the paramedics as they assessed Marcus's injuries. "Yes, he did, and you're going to be okay." The paramedics worked quickly, lifting Marcus onto a stretcher, stabilizing his wounds and securing an IV. Kaiser climbed onto the stretcher without hesitation, pressing against Marcus as if to assure him that he wouldn't leave. Harper couldn't help but smile through the tension. The loyalty, the intelligence, the bravery, it was uncanny. "Do you know this dog?" Harper asked, keeping his voice low as they moved Marcus toward the ambulance. Marcus's hand trembled as it rested on Kaiser's back. I saved him from the shelter," he rasped. "He was supposed to be gone weeks ago. I didn't have time to train him, but I knew he had potential." Harper's brow furrowed. Potential. Marcus coughed violently, blood staining the stretcher sheet. He's more than just a dog. He can do things that I thought only trained K9s could." Harper's mind raced. The bravery, the instinct, the ability to track and protect, it wasn't random. It was deliberate. Marcus had somehow recognized something extraordinary in this small, abandoned puppy and nurtured it in secret. As the ambulance doors closed, Harper looked back at the alley. The rain was still falling, washing away footprints, blood, and debris, but the memory of what had just occurred burned in his mind. Kaiser had not only found Marcus but had kept him alive long enough for help to arrive. Then Marcus's voice, weak but firm, cut through Harper's thoughts. "They're still out there." Harper's stomach sank. "Who are they?" he asked, moving closer, but Marcus had already passed out again, his strength spent. Kaiser stood tall, ears alert, eyes fixed on the alley's entrance, growling softly. The puppy's focus was unbroken, unwavering. Harper knew in that moment that this small dog was far more than a companion. He was a guardian, a protector, and somehow, the key to surviving the danger that still lingered. As the ambulance's lights faded into the night, Harper realized the truth. Kaiser had brought them to Marcus not by chance, but by design, and the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm that had just begun. The shadows remained. The attackers were still out there, and the alley was far from safe. But for the first time in hours, Harper felt a glimmer of hope, not because of him or Marcus or even backup, but because of a small, scrappy German Shepherd puppy who refused to give up. And that glimmer of hope would lead them into a night they would never forget. The night air was thick with the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and metallic tangs of blood. The alley had fallen into an eerie silence after the first wave of chaos, but Harper knew better than to trust it. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching unnaturally against the dim light from the ambulance parked at the alley's mouth. Kaiser, small but impossibly fearless, stood like a statue beside Marcus, eyes darting toward the darkness beyond the fence. Harper rose to his full height, sidearm in hand, scanning the perimeter. His boots squelched in the shallow puddles, each step a drumbeat in the quiet night. He had been in dangerous situations before: chases, armed confrontations, domestic disputes, but something about this felt different, personal, close. The attackers weren't just random criminals. They had targeted one of their own, left him for dead, and expected no one to intervene. Yet here they were, still lurking in the shadows, unaware they were about to face a force far more formidable than they imagined. Kaiser's low growl rolled through the alley, a warning carried in the rhythm of rain and distant sirens. Harper's pulse quickened. The puppy was only months old, yet he moved with confidence, positioning himself protectively in front of Marcus. Harper's eyes followed every movement, marveling at the instinct in every tense muscle of the small dog's body. A faint rustling echoed from the fence line, a deliberate sound not caused by wind or rain. Harper's hand tightened on his weapon. "Police, come out now," he commanded, voice cutting through the storm. The men didn't respond immediately. They were waiting, calculating, underestimating the little German Shepherd. Then the first figure emerged. Tall, hooded, hands tucked into pockets, his face obscured by shadows but his intent clear. He stepped forward casually, as if daring Harper to make a move. Behind him, another man followed, slower, cautious, their presence menacing but disorganized. "It's just a dog," the first man sneered, his tone laced with contempt. "Move, mutt." Kaiser's reaction was instantaneous. The puppy lunged with the precision and fearlessness of an experienced canine, sinking his teeth into the first man's ankle. The man yelped in pain, spinning around, throwing a punch at the small creature, only to have it dodge nimbly and retaliate with a sharp bite that forced him to collapse into a pile of debris. The second man hesitated, taken aback by the sheer aggression and intelligence of the tiny attacker. Harper advanced carefully, covering the remaining threat. "Get down, police!" he barked, stepping over broken crates and slippery puddles. The attackers were disoriented. They hadn't expected resistance, especially not from a puppy. It was enough for Harper to gain the upper hand. Every year of training, every instinct he had, converged into this moment. The rain fell harder, mixing with the blood, sweat, and adrenaline. Harper's eyes caught another movement, a glint of metal reflecting the ambulance lights. One of the men had drawn a knife. Harper froze for a split second. Too slow and Marcus could be in danger. Too aggressive and the puppy might be harmed. The seconds stretched into eternity. But Kaiser, undeterred, leaped between Harper and the knife-wielding man, teeth bared, hackles raised. The attacker swung wildly, missing entirely, tripping over a loose brick. Kaiser didn't flinch, only growled, relentless, unyielding. Harper fired 2 warning shots into the air. The crack echoed off the alley walls, startling the attackers and buying precious seconds. Sirens wailed closer now, lights flashing, casting the wet brick walls in surreal red and blue. Backup had arrived. Officers poured into the alley, weapons raised, shouting commands. The attackers had no choice. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and outclassed by a tiny, soaked German shepherd and a vigilant partner. Within moments, they were restrained, cuffed, and loaded into patrol vehicles. Harper knelt beside Marcus, whose breathing was ragged but steady. "You're safe now," Harper said, brushing rain-soaked hair from the officer's forehead. Kaiser pressed himself against Marcus, his small frame shivering but triumphant. The paramedics worked quickly, lifting Marcus onto the stretcher. Kaiser clambered onto the stretcher without hesitation, circling the officer protectively, refusing to leave his side. Harper felt a lump in his throat. The puppy had led them to Marcus, held off attackers, and now refused to abandon him, even as professionals took over. "Do you know this dog?" Harper asked, voice low, as the paramedics checked vitals. Marcus's eyes fluttered open briefly. I saved him from the shelter," he whispered, voice weak but steady. He was going to be gone, but I knew he had potential. I didn't have time to train him fully, not yet." Harper blinked. "Potential." Marcus coughed violently, blood flecking his lips. "He's more than just a dog, more than a pet. He's a partner. I saw it in his eyes from the start. I trained him secretly, nights after shifts, didn't tell anyone, just prepared him." Harper's mind raced. The bravery, the precision, the instinct. It wasn't chance. Marcus had nurtured something extraordinary, and now that training had manifested in a moment of life-saving heroism. As the ambulance doors closed, Harper glanced back at the alley. The rain blurred the edges of the scene, washing away footprints, blood, and debris. But the memory of what had transpired burned in his mind. Kaiser had not only found Marcus but had stood firm against real, immediate danger, keeping the wounded officer alive until help arrived. Yet Marcus's voice broke through Harper's thoughts one last time. "They're still out there, somewhere." Harper's stomach tightened. He realized the truth. The night was far from over. Whatever organization or gang had targeted Marcus had not been fully confronted. The attackers had underestimated a small puppy and a determined officer, but the danger lingered. Kaiser, ears pricked, eyes scanning the darkness, growled low once more. Harper understood instantly. This was far from over. This little dog, so young and fragile in appearance, was the only thing standing between them and whatever threat still waited in the shadows. And Harper knew that from this moment forward, Kaiser was not just a companion, not just a rescue puppy. He was a partner, A guardian, a sentinel who would demand respect in a world where courage often came in unexpected forms. The storm raged around them, relentless, unforgiving. But inside the alley a bond had been forged, between man and dog, between partners in blue, and between courage and survival. Harper's gaze softened as he looked at Kaiser. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Because this puppy was far more than anyone had imagined, and the city was about to find out just how extraordinary he really was. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving Cleveland streets glistening under the pale light of dawn. Officer Daniel Harper sat in his patrol car outside Mercy General Hospital, the windshield streaked with the residue of the storm. Inside, Marcus Reed rested in a private room, bandaged and stabilized, though pale and weak from the night's ordeal. Beside him lay a small, soaked but undaunted figure, Kaiser, the German Shepherd puppy whose bravery had captivated the entire precinct. Harper leaned back, hands gripping the steering wheel, replaying the events of the night in his mind. A small puppy had not only tracked a missing officer through rain and debris, but had also fended off 2 armed men. It sounded like a fairy tale, a story too incredible to be true, yet every bruise, every wet paw print, and every wagging tail confirmed it. Kaiser had saved a life. When Marcus finally opened his eyes, Harper felt a mix of relief and awe. The young officer smiled weakly, reaching for the small dog curled beside him. "He did more than find me," Marcus said. "He saved me." Harper raised an eyebrow. "You knew he could do this?" Marcus shook his head slightly, still recovering. "I didn't, not fully, but I knew he had potential. He was smart, intuitive, loyal beyond reason. I've been training him in secret, nights after shifts, out of uniform, away from the precinct. He was meant for the K-9 program eventually, but I didn't think he'd have to prove himself so soon." Harper's jaw dropped. "You trained him yourself, in secret?" Marcus nodded. "I rescued him from a shelter 2 months ago, scheduled for euthanasia. Too young, too small, too wild, but I saw something. I started basic obedience, sent training, agility drills, tracking exercises. Nights after my shift, I'd sneak him into the old training yard near the precinct. Nobody knew. I didn't want anyone thinking I was crazy for trusting a stray puppy with more than simple commands." Harper couldn't hide his astonishment. "And he just did this, tracked you through an industrial alley, protected you from armed men?" Marcus nodded again, eyes glossy. "He's extraordinary. Instincts, timing, courage. He knew when to act, and he knew what I needed. He's a natural." Harper leaned back in his seat, the weight of the realization sinking in. This wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. Kaiser was more than a dog. He was a protector, a partner, a life-saving force. A part of Harper's mind struggled to accept it. He had seen countless K-9 units in his years on the force, but none so young, none so raw, none so instinctively heroic. Later that morning, Internal Affairs began their investigation into Marcus's assault. The attack had been swift, targeted, and brutal, but the documents and surveillance footage revealed something remarkable. The young puppy had guided Harper straight to Marcus, directly to the wounded officer. Every action, every bark, every leap seemed purposeful. The footage showed Kaiser growling, biting at one of the men's ankles with pinpoint accuracy, keeping them at bay just long enough for backup to arrive. The department held an emergency meeting. Chief Reynolds, a tall, imposing figure, sat at the head of the table. Around him were Harper, Marcus, and a small group of officers who had responded to the scene. "The bravery demonstrated by Officer Reed is commendable," Reynolds began, voice grave. "But it's the actions of Kaiser, a civilian animal at the time, that saved a life. We need to address this appropriately." The room was silent. Some officers exchanged incredulous glances. A puppy, an untrained dog, saving a fellow officer. It sounded absurd. "Are we seriously considering a K-9 program induction?" One veteran officer muttered, skepticism heavy in his tone. "Yes," Harper said firmly, his eyes fixed on Kaiser. The little dog sat obediently beside Marcus, tail wagging once, ears pricked, aware of every movement in the room. He's earned it. Every instinct, every action last night was precise. He knew what he was doing. Reynolds nodded slowly. We'll review training protocols, certifications, and suitability, but make no mistake, this dog has demonstrated extraordinary aptitude for K9 duty. Harper glanced at Marcus, whose hand rested on Kaiser's small back. You knew he had this potential, Harper said softly. I hoped, Marcus admitted, voice hoarse, but I didn't imagine it would be this dramatic. He's more than a companion, he's a protector, and he's loyal beyond anything I've ever seen. The news of Kaiser's heroics spread quickly through the precinct, then across the city. Social media posts about the German Shepherd puppy hero went viral within hours. Videos captured from Harper's body cam showed Kaiser darting through rain-slicked alleys, growling at armed men, and staying steadfast beside Marcus. The public was captivated. News crews lined the hospital parking lot, broadcasting updates live. Calls poured in from animal lovers, K9 enthusiasts, and citizens inspired by the dog's courage. Amidst the accolades, however, there was tension within the department. Some officers doubted Kaiser's readiness. Too young, one muttered, not trained enough, could get injured or worse, fail when it matters. Marcus's gaze hardened. Do you see what he did last night? He didn't fail, he saved my life, he's ready. Harper added, it's not just about training, it's about instinct. He has it. He knows how to protect, how to track, how to act under pressure. You can't teach that, it's innate. The debate continued, but Harper and Marcus were unwavering. They knew what they had witnessed firsthand, a bond between man and dog that transcended ordinary training, ordinary loyalty. By afternoon, Marcus had been released from the hospital for recovery at home, with Kaiser nestled in the passenger seat of his car. Harper walked beside him as the doors closed. You two are going to be a problem for the department, he joked lightly, masking the awe in his voice. Marcus laughed weakly. Problem? No, change maybe, but I think the city needs a dog like him. Kaiser's tail wagged, ears pricked, and eyes fixed on Marcus with unwavering focus. Harper watched, realizing that this small creature, once abandoned and nearly lost, had become a symbol of courage, loyalty, and hope. Yet Harper knew, even with the heroics of the previous night, danger was not entirely gone. Whoever had attacked Marcus had not yet been fully identified. The men thought they had left an officer for dead. They had no idea that their target was now accompanied by an unstoppable, fearless force in the form of a small German shepherd. As Harper drove away from the hospital, he glanced at Marcus and Kaiser. This isn't over, is it? He asked softly. Marcus shook his head. No, not even close, but now we have an advantage they didn't count on. Harper's lips pressed into a firm line. The city, the department, and perhaps even the nation had yet to witness the full power of this unlikely duo. Kaiser, the puppy once destined for the shelter, was no longer just a pet. He was a protector, a hero, and soon, an official member of the K9 unit. And the storm that had started the night before was only the beginning of what lay ahead. Weeks had passed since that storm-soaked night when Kaiser had saved Marcus Reed. The city had moved on in its own way, crime reports, morning traffic, the hum of life. But inside the Cleveland Police Department, a quiet buzz persisted. Officers whispered about the tiny German Shepherd puppy who had outsmarted and outfought men twice his size. Some laughed, some scoffed, some were genuinely inspired. But the reality was, Kaiser wasn't officially a K9 yet. And that uncertainty weighed heavily, not on the dog, but on the men and women who would have to rely on him when the real stakes emerged. Officer Harper walked through the training yard outside the precinct, watching as Kaiser bounded through agility courses with the kind of intensity only instinct could fuel. He was small but agile, leaping over hurdles, darting through tunnels, and weaving between poles with near-perfect precision. Marcus followed closely behind, whistle in hand, voice sharp yet encouraging. Come on, Kaiser, eyes up, focus. Marcus barked, voice firm but affectionate. The puppy responded instantly, ears perked, paws kicking up mud, every movement precise. But not everyone was convinced. "Too small," muttered Officer Jenkins, arms crossed as he leaned against a fence post. "Can't possibly handle real-life situations. What if he runs into a door, gets cut up, or worse, fails when it counts?" Harper shook his head, jaw tight. "That dog already saved a life. He's fast, smart, fearless. If anything, he's overqualified." Jenkins snorted. "You can't train instinct out of a dog, sure, but experience, combat readiness, he's a puppy, a glorified lap dog with attitude." Marcus didn't respond verbally. He didn't need to. Kaiser's next move spoke for itself. A metal scent container had been hidden near the far fence line. Harper watched as Kaiser froze mid-stride, nose twitching. He dropped low to the ground, sniffing intently, and then darted toward it. Within seconds, he had located it, pawing it to signal success. The other officers exchanged uneasy glances. That's a good sign," muttered one. Marcus gave a satisfied nod. He's not just reacting, he's thinking, strategizing, tracking scent, identifying danger, executing tasks, and he does it under stress. Rain, mud, noise, it doesn't matter. Harper crouched to Kaiser's level, scratching behind his ears. "You're something else, little guy. Don't let the doubters get to you." Kaiser barked softly, tail wagging, as if he understood the conversation. But the true test wasn't the training yard. The department had arranged a full-scale simulated emergency, a missing officer in an industrial complex, obstacles, false scents, and timed objectives. This was the final evaluation before any chance at official induction. The sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the concrete. Smoke machines and sound effects were set up to create chaos, alarms, sirens, shouting. Harper and Marcus suited up, Kaiser ready at the starting line. His eyes were sharp, body tense with anticipation, muscles coiled like springs. "Remember, buddy," Marcus whispered to him, "it's real now. Focus, find them, protect." The whistle blew. Kaiser bolted, moving with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. He navigated debris, avoided pitfalls, and tracked the scent perfectly. At first, the simulated noises confused him, alarm bells, shouting, even smoke, but he adjusted, sniffing, evaluating, then charging forward again. Harper and Marcus followed at a careful distance, hearts pounding. Minutes passed. The crowd of observing officers whispered, tense, eyes glued to the scene. Some doubted, some silently hoped. The training course had tricked even the best dogs before. Could a puppy this young and small succeed? Then near the far edge of the industrial maze, Kaiser froze. His nose quivered, tail rigid. He barked sharply, the sound cutting through alarms and chaos. Harper's heart raced. He watched as the puppy darted into a narrow passageway, paws skidding over metal and concrete. Officers gasped as he emerged moments later at the precise location of the missing officer mannequin, hidden under debris. He pawed at the mannequin, barked again, and circled protectively. The crowd went silent. Some whispered he found it. Marcus stepped forward, voice shaking slightly. "Yes, he did, and faster than I expected." Harper swallowed hard. This was more than instinct. Kaiser wasn't just following scent. He was assessing, calculating, responding to chaos, prioritizing the life that needed saving over every distraction. Head trainer Sergeant Caldwell finally spoke, voice low but firm. "He's not just ready, he's exceptional." She studied Kaiser, nodding the precision, the courage, the discipline evident in the puppy's every movement. "I've seen older dogs fail this exercise. He passed with flying colors. This isn't luck. This is skill, instinct, and training." Some of the doubters shuffled uncomfortably. Their skepticism couldn't hide the undeniable. Kaiser was a natural, a prodigy in fur. But fate had more tests in store, because that night the department received a real call. Officer down, industrial area, same type of danger as Marcus had faced. No time for simulations, no backup waiting. This was real, and Kaiser would be deployed for the first time in an actual emergency. As the squad cars roared through the streets, Harper glanced at the small German shepherd in the back of the vehicle, harness fastened, ears erect, eyes unwavering. The puppy exuded focus, courage, and determination. He wasn't just a hero in training anymore. He was about to prove it in the real world. Harper clenched his jaw. "You ready, little guy?" Kaiser barked sharply in response, as if saying, "I've been ready all along." And Harper knew instinctively that whatever awaited them at the industrial site that night, Kaiser was going to face it head-on. No hesitation, no fear, only action. Because this was the moment every hero waited for, the line between training and reality. And for a small, abandoned puppy, this was the night that would define him. The night was heavy with tension, the kind that clung to your skin and sank into your bones. Cleveland's industrial district lay silent except for the distant hum of sirens, the occasional splash of rainwater, and the low rumble of police vehicles weaving between warehouses and shipping containers. Officer Daniel Harper sat in the back of the K9 unit vehicle, eyes glued to the small German shepherd puppy beside him. Kaiser was calm, ears pricked, eyes darting, nose twitching, every muscle coiled, ready for action. The call had come in just as dusk fell, an officer down, trapped in an abandoned warehouse complex, possibly injured by armed suspects. Harper's squad cars had arrived minutes earlier, blocking off the perimeter, but the area was vast, shadowed by cranes, shipping containers, and abandoned machinery. The dispatcher had emphasized the urgency. This wasn't a drill. Someone's life was on the line. Marcus, still recovering but eager to assist, leaned in close to Kaiser, whispering encouragement. "Stay sharp, buddy. Track him, protect him, find him." The whistle blew. Kaiser bolted instantly, moving like lightning, paws skimming puddles and concrete alike. Harper struggled to keep up, dodging crates and machinery, but his eyes never left the small dog, who seemed to glide through the chaos with uncanny precision. At first the scent was faint, almost imperceptible amidst the myriad of industrial odors, oil, rust, damp wood, and scattered trash. But Kaiser paused, nose quivering, eyes narrowing, tail stiff. He sniffed, then barked sharply, pivoting in a direction that led Harper through a labyrinth of stacked crates and narrow walkways. Behind them the air vibrated with tension. Shadows moved along the edges of buildings, figures lurking, watching, calculating. Harper felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, knowing the danger was real this time. There were no simulations, no safety nets, just him, Marcus, and the tiny dog racing against time. Suddenly Kaiser stopped, ears forward, body rigid. Harper leaned closer. The puppy's nose twitched rapidly. The scent was stronger now. Someone was nearby, moving, alive. "Found him," Harper murmured. Kaiser darted ahead, weaving through the tight spaces with a speed that belied his size. Harper followed, breath coming in short bursts, heart hammering. And then through a narrow gap between stacked pallets they saw him. An officer slumped against a concrete wall, pale, barely conscious, blood staining his uniform. Kaiser barked triumphantly, rushing to the officer's side and curling protectively around him. Harper dropped to his knees, checking the officer's vitals. "Hang in there. We've got you," he shouted, pressing a hand against a bleeding wound. The officer groaned, eyes fluttering open. Thank you," he rasped. Harper glanced at Kaiser. The puppy had already taken up a position between them and the shadows, growling low, ears alert. Harper's eyes followed the line of sight. Figures emerged from the darkness, armed men who had been hiding, likely planning to finish what they started. But they hadn't counted on Kaiser. The small German shepherd didn't hesitate. He lunged with precise, fearless aggression, teeth bared, barking furiously. One of the men tried to grab him, but the puppy's speed and agility made him untouchable. Another attempted to flank the group, but Kaiser darted, cutting off the path. forcing the man back with an instinctual precision that made Harper's jaw drop. Backup arrived moments later, lights blazing, guns drawn. The attackers panicked, realizing they were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and outsmarted by a tiny dog. Within minutes, all were restrained, cuffed, and loaded into patrol vehicles. Weapons recovered, threats neutralized. Harper exhaled, brushing rain-soaked hair from his face. He looked down at Kaiser, who was now sitting calmly beside the rescued officer, tail wagging just once. "You did it, buddy," Harper murmured. Marcus arrived, wheeling himself closer, eyes shining with pride. "I told you he was ready," Marcus said softly, voice shaking slightly. I never imagined he'd be this good." Kaiser leaned into Marcus as if acknowledging the praise. Harper smiled, watching the bond between man and dog. This small, scrappy German shepherd, once abandoned and destined for the shelter, had now saved not one but two officers. His courage, instinct, and unwavering loyalty had changed the course of the night. The rescued officer, now stabilized by paramedics, looked down at Kaiser. "You saved my life," he whispered, voice barely audible over the sirens. Kaiser barked softly in response, pressing closer to him, ears alert for any lingering threat. Harper took a deep breath, the weight of the night pressing on him. Kaiser had proven himself beyond any doubt. He wasn't a pet. He wasn't just a puppy. He was a hero, a partner, a force of nature in fur. The footage from the body cams and nearby security cameras was later compiled into a short video. Kaiser darting through puddles, growling, protecting the injured officer, holding off armed men, and guiding Harper and Marcus to safety. The video went viral. Millions watched, captivated by the courage of a tiny German shepherd puppy who defied expectations, instincts, and size to become a hero. But the most profound moment came not on social media, not in accolades or headlines, but in the quiet after the storm. Kaiser sat beside Marcus, looking up with loyal eyes, tail wagging just once as if saying, "I'm here, always." Harper knelt beside them both. "From a stray on the street to saving lives, you've come a long way, little guy." Marcus smiled weakly, tears glistening in his eyes. "Yeah, but we've still got a long road ahead. The city, the department, they need to understand what he is." Harper nodded, looking at Kaiser with a mixture of awe and respect. "They will, and if they don't, we'll make sure they do. This dog, he's more than exceptional. He's irreplaceable." Kaiser barked softly, almost as if he understood every word. In that moment, the trio, Marcus, Harper, and Kaiser, stood as a testament to courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog. As dawn began to break, the city awakening around them, Harper realized that the stormy night that had begun with a desperate plea from a small puppy had come full circle. Kaiser had not only found his partner but had protected him, guided him, and in doing so, had reminded everyone watching that heroes sometimes come in the smallest, most unexpected forms. And for Harper, Marcus, and the city itself, one undeniable truth remained. From this night forward, the legend of Kaiser, the life-saving German shepherd puppy, would never be forgotten. The morning sun broke over Cleveland, scattering golden light across the police training grounds. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wet asphalt and freshly cut grass, remnants of the storm that had raged days before. Inside the precinct, there was a buzz of anticipation, whispers of excitement, and a sense that today was different, special. Today was Kaiser's induction day. Officers lined the courtyard, standing at attention. Some still doubted the small German shepherd puppy, while others had witnessed firsthand the courage and intelligence that had earned him a place among them. Cameras clicked, reporters jostled for position, and social media teams streamed live footage, capturing the moment that had captivated an entire city. Officer Harper and Marcus Reed stood side by side near the podium, Kaiser sitting proudly between them. His fur gleamed in the sunlight, ears erect, eyes alert. He wagged his tail once, glancing up at Marcus as if understanding the significance of this day. Chief Reynolds stepped forward, his imposing presence commanding silence. He cleared his throat, looking down at the young dog with an expression that combined admiration and awe. "Ladies and gentlemen, officers of the Cleveland Police Department and members of the public," he began, voice carrying across the courtyard. "Today, we recognize not just an extraordinary act of courage, but the embodiment of loyalty, instinct, and dedication. This small German Shepherd puppy has proven that heroism comes in all shapes and sizes." Harper felt a lump in his throat as the crowd erupted into quiet applause, some clapping tentatively, others cheering enthusiastically. Marcus's hand rested lightly on Kaiser's back, feeling the slight tremor of anticipation as if the puppy sensed the gravity of the moment. "On the night of December 18th, Reynolds continued, Officer Marcus Reed was gravely injured while responding to a threat in the industrial district. Left for dead by unknown assailants, Officer Reed's life was saved by an unlikely hero, a young German Shepherd puppy named Kaiser. Through courage, intelligence, and instinct beyond his months, Kaiser guided officers to the injured man, fended off armed suspects, and ensured the safe arrival of emergency personnel." The crowd murmured in awe. Reporters scribbled notes furiously, cameras trained on the small dog who had captured the city's heart. "Effective immediately," Reynolds declared, "Kaiser is hereby inducted as a full member of the Cleveland Police K-9 unit. He will serve alongside trained officers, performing duties of search, rescue, protection, and community engagement. Let this ceremony serve as a reminder that heroism knows no age, no size, and no bounds." A hush fell over the courtyard as Marcus stepped forward, kneeling beside Kaiser. He fastened a shiny new K-9 harness over the puppy's chest. The insignia gleamed in the morning sun. Harper and the other officers gathered closer, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others quietly nodding in approval. Marcus looked down at Kaiser, voice soft but steady. "You were destined for greatness from the moment I saw you at that shelter. You never backed down, never hesitated, and never let fear stop you. Today the world knows what we've always known. You're not just a puppy, you're a protector, a partner, a hero." Kaiser barked softly, tail wagging, as if acknowledging the words. He nudged Marcus with his nose, pressing close in a gesture of trust and loyalty. Harper's eyes glistened as he watched the scene unfold. This was more than a ceremony. It was a bond cemented in courage, blood, rain, and unwavering loyalty. The ceremony continued with demonstrations of Kaiser's skills, scent tracking, obstacle navigation, and simulated rescues. Each move was executed with precision and instinctive intelligence. The crowd gasped and cheered as the puppy completed tasks that some fully grown K-9 struggled with. It was a display of raw talent, honed through love, care, and a natural instinct for protection. After the demonstrations, Harper knelt beside Marcus and Kaiser, letting the puppy rest his head on his lap. "He's going to change the department," Harper said softly. Marcus nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "He already has. Lives saved, hearts inspired. Even the skeptics can't deny it anymore." Chief Reynolds approached, shaking Marcus's hand and ruffling Kaiser's fur. "You've set a new standard for what it means to be a hero, both of you," he said. "Kaiser will serve as a reminder to all of us that courage is not measured in size or age, but in heart and action." As the sun rose higher, the event transitioned into informal celebrations. Officers posed for photos with Kaiser, reporters conducted interviews, and social media buzzed with hashtags like Kaiser the Hero and Cleveland K-9 Miracle. Yet, despite the attention and acclaim, the moment remained personal. For Harper, Marcus, and Kaiser, this was the culmination of nights spent in rain, fear, and uncertainty. The moment their bond, tested in the harshest conditions, was finally recognized. Later, as the courtyard emptied, Harper, Marcus, and Kaiser remained behind. Harper knelt, brushing mud from Kaiser's paws. "You earned this, little guy, not just the badge but everything it stands for." Kaiser barked softly, tail wagging, then nuzzled Marcus, who laughed through tears. "We're just getting started," Marcus whispered. "The city needs him, and so do we." Harper nodded. "And no matter what comes next, we face it together. You, me, and this little hero." Kaiser tilted his head, ears perked, as if understanding the weight of their words. The journey that began with a stray puppy begging for help in the rain had culminated in this: recognition, honor, and the promise of many more lives saved. As they walked back to the precinct, the morning sun glinting off the city's wet streets, Harper realized something profound. In a world that often seemed dark, small acts of courage, whether from man or dog, could ignite hope, inspire change, and alter destinies. Kaiser padded proudly between Marcus and Harper, leash held loosely in Marcus's hand, harness gleaming, eyes bright with intelligence and loyalty. He was no longer just a puppy. He was a hero, a guardian, and a symbol of what bravery truly meant. And the city would never forget him.